Welcome to Face2Face. This is a show about change and about what's next. It's a show that wants to ask questions, peel back the layers of our average everyday experience, and go beyond scratching the surface. We interview amazing people with incredible ideas and stories who have done wild, weird, and wonderful things. Remember that imagination shared creates collaboration, and collaboration creates community, and community inspires social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face2Face.
So again, another real treat for me at the Toronto International Film Festival this year, 2019. Barbara Kopple and I had a conversation in the business center at one of the hotels. We couldn't find another spot that was quiet enough, and it actually worked out to be quite the little sound booth for us, so it was perfect. In the moment, Gorilla sound booth. There could be a market there, Barbara, I'm not sure. Desert One is her new film, and this was the world premiere. Barbara is an Oscar-winning filmmaker. She is I'm going to call her a master documentarian. I hope she's okay with that. But this is a film about a secret mission to free hostages that were captured during the 1979 Iranian Revolution. And Barbara is somebody who listens. She's into rich and complex storytelling, and this film really plays like a bit of a thriller, actually. I mean, a fascinating time in history, but also just a really incredible rescue mission as well. And Barbara says she gets to that story. She gets to the bottom of things by listening, and the fact that she loves people, and that she takes the time to step in and lean in a little closer and listen with commitment and intention. And so we get so many different interviews with so many different people that were a part of this. The film is animated. Anyway, it's a fascinating film, cinema verite at its finest, it seems to me, and telling a story that on one level just seems so kind of surreal now when you look back and some of the images and so on, and so tragic at the same time. But what a real treat to listen in to Barbara and to enjoy a conversation with this Oscar-winning filmmaker and share with some of her thoughts and her ideas around filmmaking and storytelling and so on. And again, one of those real treats for me at the Toronto International Film Festival this year. And don't forget davidpecklive.com for more information about my writing and public speaking. You can get a copy of my book, Real Change is Incremental, there through Amazon. And Face2Face Live is coming up. Face2Face is coming up. The website is face2facelive.ca, but Face2Face Live is coming up on 6 years and a bit, and coming up close up on 500 interviews. If you want to support the work we do financially, you can do that through Patreon. I've set up a site there. At $1, $5, $10, $20 a month, we would appreciate it. Help offset some of the costs. And if you can't do that, please do leave us a review online on iTunes, Spotify, something like that. We would really appreciate it. The more news, the more noise, the better in this digital world. And if you're not interested or can't do that or would like to advertise with Face2Face, you can do that as well. We've got a growing demographic that's global, over 20 countries, hundreds of thousands of downloads, and you can advertise through newsletters. We have a website banner there, ads there, and you can also get embedded into the interviews themselves. And don't forget rabble.ca as well for more information about news for the rest of us and podcasters and thinkers and writers and bloggers who are rolling up their sleeves and diving into issues that matter. Don't go away we've got a fascinating interview coming up with Barbara Kopple, and also about a fascinating film called Desert One. Well, welcome to Face2Face. We are joined by a very special guest here today on Face2Face with Barbara Kopple here at the Toronto International Film Festival to talk about her new film, Desert One. We're kind of hanging out in a business center. This is a studio on the go. Barbara, thanks so much for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's so nice and quiet in here.
I know we were sort of skulking around looking for a spot that was quiet in the lobby, and we found one. We found it. Let's just hope a bus load of school kids don't arrive to do some quick printing or something.
Well, if they do, we'll punt and we'll figure out what to do.
Right.
No worries.
Which is exactly what I know about your career. You're making it work, punting, guerrilla crews. We were just chatting a little bit about that as we were getting prepped with sound, wearing headphones. You don't do sound anymore. Tell me a little bit about the process. And before you do that, by the way, congratulations on the film.
Oh, thank you.
It's powerful, it's moving, it's touching in so many ways, and I'd love to talk to you about the relevance and the importance of it today, not just as kind of a historical document saying, hey, this is kind of what happened and what can we learn from our past and our mistakes, hopefully, but how does it actually apply to us today? So yeah, tell me a bit about that small crew and about how I think you're going to say it's all about the people.
Well, I've been making films for a long time now. And at the beginning, we always had just sometimes camera and sound and an assistant camera because we shot 16 millimeter film,
Right.
which doesn't happen anymore. And I did the sound on all my films. I guess I did sound for 17 years.
Wow.
Before I stopped doing sound, but I loved it because, you know, you're really directly tuned in to who you're talking to and what you're filming, and have one headphone on, one pad on, and one off. And
was it a budget thing, Barbara, or was it more just because you wanted to be kind of in control of it all, directing and so on?
Both,
yeah.
It's always a budget thing.
It's always a budget thing, especially in documentary film.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Much better now, but before, people wouldn't even understand why you were making documentaries.
Winning a couple Oscars helps from a budgetary perspective, doesn't it?
Not totally.
No?
You still have to go out there and beg and persuade and hope that somebody will see your vision or...
Right, somebody has to catch on, right? It's probably not going to be a business decision to get behind a doc film. There might be some money to be made, but chances are it's more social justice, philanthropic kind of a thing, isn't it?
No, documentaries are actually doing very well now.
Oh, okay.
Because people, I think, want a sense of truthfulness.
Right.
And so people want to see things that are real. And, I mean, the documentaries have been sold out here.
At the festival.
Yes.
That's great news.
There's so many different places now that want to show documentaries, theatrical, television, you name it, a lot of streaming. So it's the golden age of documentary.
Oh, that's cool.
Thank goodness.
Finally, it's here.
Yes.
And now you don't have to be the sound designer as well at the same
Well,
time.
I liked doing sound, but I stopped after a while. I had a heavy Nagra that had lots of batteries in it, and you'd put a mixer on it and mics. So I stopped just because 17 years is long enough to lug it.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because when I was doing sound, if something was wonderful, I didn't feel the Nagra at all. I could fly. I could go up mountains. I could do anything. And when I wasn't getting good things, then I felt it.
Oh, that's pretty interesting about being present and being in the moment, isn't it? That's a whole other conversation, it seems to me. Maybe a silly question after so many years, but why do you make docs? What is it about it? Are you a truth teller? Are you a storyteller? Is it about pushing back against fake news? Is it a historical interest on your own part? I'm sure it's a layered answer, but love to know why and why you're still going.
Why wouldn't I be?
That's a great response. I love it.
I just love people, and I'm very curious about people, and I love people to be able to tell their stories and their voices to be heard, and for viewers to be able to go on a journey with these people, and also the surprise of never knowing what's going to happen when you're doing a documentary is wonderful for me, and I love the challenges too. So it's perfect for what I want to do and with my life.
I really love and appreciate the way in Desert One you contextualize it for us through family interviews, President Carter, but you also give us the context of the Iranian side as well, or at least as best you can, I suppose, within your budgetary framework and all of that. But you have their voices as well. Would you say, can you talk a little bit about that cross-cultural sort of balance and as far as truth-telling is concerned, and have you become a better listener over these years as a doc filmmaker?
I think I've always been a listener. Listening to me is what's important. And as far as Desert One, how could you just tell the American side of the story? It's absolutely key, and it's rich and it's complex to know every story and every point of view, and that would include the Iranian point of view. And one of the people that we got was very interesting. He was an 11-year-old boy at the time, and his family had rented a bus, and they went on vacation, and they happened to go through the road where, you know, the Americans had landed with their C-130s and their helicopters getting all ready for the mission. And seeing it through his eyes,
wow,
his very innocent eyes of being, you know, afraid, but also exciting to have this happen. And then after it was over, the one thing he wanted to do was, like any kid was to run to his classmates and tell them all about his adventure.
Right. You won't believe what I saw, what I was a part of.
It was like the biggest thing that ever happened in his life.
Which is so beautiful, because that's pretty much what any kid anywhere in the world
would do that.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we'd all be just couldn't wait.
And we had an Iranian crew, 2 beautiful women who actually came all the way from Iran to TIFF to see the film, and we're on stage and
amazing.
Doing part of the Q&A, and they're here today for the screening as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. What are you surprised as you tell these stories? Does the surprise for you happen in the editing room? Or, I mean, this has kind of got to have a spy-like feel to it. It certainly has that feel as I'm watching the film, as you sort of peel back the layers. Were there things about this story that you didn't know that you kind of found out as you got deeper in?
I did not know most of this.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't know until, I mean, I knew what happened.
Sure,
but
of
I
course,
didn't know sort of the reflections of the people, of what their jobs were, or how they were feeling, or how they interpreted this, and seeing these very strong men break down in tears, thinking about, you know, one of the heaviest things that ever happened in their lives, and losing, you know, 8 people due to Murphy's Law.
Basically, yeah, just a complete...
Where anything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Right, pretty much right from the get-go. I was pretty stunned by the fact that they had no one of the military commanders or foreign correspondents said something about no full rehearsal.
One of the Delta Force people said that. Roberts, he said, yeah, there was no rehearsal.
Do you hope? I mean, it's a silly question again, in a sense. I mean, do you go into a film like this? I mean, my listeners will know I'm about social change and moving the needle a little bit, getting people to see the world in a new way. And I love your film because it's obviously about this hostage crisis before the big Iranian hostage crisis and the Argo-like crisis back
No, it was the same.
Was it right around the same time?
It was all the same.
It was all
the Argo one was 6 or 8 people that escaped.
Right.
And
got
the
it.
Canadian Prime Minister, you know, took care of them and fed them, and then, you know, the CIA came in and they concocted this film to take them out.
Right.
Meanwhile, the other 52 were hostages for 444 days.
Right.
So it was
the number that threw me off, the 52 of them.
It all happened at the same time.
Oh, wow. Okay. And it just, again, and it shows you the complexity of these types of things, the international relationships, the political implications, and the conversations that are going on at the time, it's pretty profound to me. Do you go?
I look at it as a thriller.
Yes.
How I wanted the audience to be able to see it, because it's a little small thing in history that I think has been buried for a long time. And so I didn't want anyone to know really what happened, and I wanted it to be linear, and I wanted you to go along with it and be on the edge of your seat as to what would happen to the 52 hostages, as to whether these guys would be able to do the rescue mission, and that was how I wanted to structure it, and did.
Do you sense, and I think this is where I was going earlier, when you go into a film like this, and you've made many, are you hoping for some kind of a change? Are you hoping for the question, like certain questions for people to ask when they leave the theater as they reflect further on it? I mean, I know for myself, I see a great doc and sometimes just a great film. I go, I need to learn more about this. This is one of those subjects I haven't heard about before, and wow, it's one of those classics. If only we knew.
I think that I loved the fact of letting people know and letting them feel maybe when they left the theater the bravery and the camaraderie of the military. And also, too, it was a real deep dive into President Jimmy Carter. And to me, what an incredible human being he is, that he cared more for getting the hostages out than he did for his political career. And he tried to, be very diplomatic and to do something where they wouldn't have to go in and do this mission. But those are the kinds of things that I really loved, like how these people survived, how they feel about saving each other, how the men had each other's back, and also that the feeling of hope that they could do something.
It's really quite remarkable access that you get to so many different people on sort of, I hate to say both sides, but let's say on all sides of this equation or this coin. Doesn't President Carter say something to the effect of this was so much more personal for him than political? And I think the question I have for you is there a way to tell, and I'm going to make the connection to present day, is there a way to tell when a leader is making a call or a judgment or a decision based on relationship over, say, a political decision that's made from hubris and pride and ego? Does that make sense? Like, because I read a report, a review, a good review of the film, and might have been the Hollywood Reporter, I'm not sure, but the writer made a link between then and now and said, if this hadn't happened this way, this incremental bit of business back in the 70s and 80s, we wouldn't have Donald Trump today in office. And I thought that, and he even admitted in the article that this was a bit of a leap, but at the same time, isn't it fascinating when you look back?
Yeah, I think it's very fascinating, but I think that it's very hard to determine what would happen and who would be in power and why. I mean, you also have to look at many other variables like, unemployment, of so many different political areas that I can't say that if this had succeeded that we wouldn't have gotten Reagan.
Right. And that was sort of the comment. I don't know if you've read this review or not, but that was sort of the other major point. It does raise some pretty interesting questions about what's done behind the scenes and right?
Right. But I guess the films that I try to do are more stories about people rather than, getting into if this hadn't happened, then this might happen. It's their story. It's their telling of history. It's their remembrances of what they felt, what they went through, and what they've taken with them all these years. I mean, one of the characters in the film has never even told his family about what he went through. And the way that they saw it was they came to Toronto, and this was the first time, and the son came up to me after, and he said, "Thank you. You have changed our family."
Yeah, no kidding. So this is about real people in real situations making tough choices then for you, and the relationships that they build and how they lean on one another.
Exactly. Yes.
And would you say that's, and I have not seen all of your work, but would you say that's a thread for you?
No, every film is different.
Is it? Yeah.
Oh, yes. From Woody Allen, Wild Man Blues, Woody Allen and his jazz tour and his relationship with Suni, from older films that I've done, Harlan County, USA, which was a film about coal miners in eastern Kentucky, Running from Crazy, about suicide and mental illness from the Hemingway family. I mean, every film, it's like starting for the first time, starting all over again. And there's no one way to do it. You see who you're filming, what the story is, where you're going with it, and go for it, kid.
So right. I love you. And you talked earlier about surprise. So I guess that's connected to discovery and wonder and those types of things. So in a sense, then, in doc filmmaking, the story is moment by moment, frame by frame, revealing.
You don't know what's around each corner.
Yeah, that's cool. That's got to be
whether
pretty
you get
exciting.
machine gunned and with semi-automatic carbines in Harlan County, or as in the Hemingway film, somebody reveals something about sexual abuse that, has never been said before. I mean, you just never know what's going to come out. And that's the magic of people.
Yeah.
We keep things hidden, and then there's a time where we feel we just want to talk about it.
Yeah, the magic of people. Yeah, we are complex, paradoxical souls. It's so fascinating. It's really interesting to see in the film the Iranian woman in particular, Faiza, is that how you pronounce her name?
Yes.
And how I thought it was really interesting that you left in that piece about how she was also well respected as a security guard, and the Spy's Nest, I believe.
The Spy's Nest, exactly.
Yeah,
which was the American embassy. She called it the Spy's Nest.
Which is fantastic.
Yes,
but
and how women were treated exactly the same as men. They had the same duties. They guarded the hostages, and they were in it. And most people would think it was all male students, but there were definitely a lot of women.
Pretty interesting comment. It's something I would think certainly raises some questions about what's going on culturally there, and even now, and with respect to gender disparity and so on. I was quite surprised that they were seen as sort of equivalents.
Right. That's also why I used two wonderful women for the film crew in Iran, and they, usually women are not as well respected.
Right.
And they got everything. They were just amazing and relentless and just really incredible human beings.
It sounds like they knew how to make it happen.
They did.
On a lot of levels.
Well, they went to the Revolutionary Guard. The Revolutionary Guard told them the people that they could interview. I don't think they looked at the questions.
Which is probably good.
Well, you either use them or you don't.
Right.
It depends who the people are and where the interview is going.
And so it sounds like to me you would have just worked with whatever you got. Like if they had come back and said, "Oh, you can't ask these 7 questions," you would have figured out a way in the moment.
We just said these are just guidelines,
right? Got
for
it.
what we want.
Was it harder to shoot than you thought it was going to be with respect to the political side, that sort of military police-like side, that sort of idea that we have of what...
You mean the American side or the Iranian side?
Yeah, the Iranian side. That's funny. Yeah, yeah. It's good.
No, they vetted us.
Yeah,
the Revolutionary Guards vetted me and, the films that I've done, and somehow we passed and we were able to do it.
Have you ever had that kind of pushback where you've been shut down?
Not very much. Not that I recall.
Not that you recall.
Because I always try to think of another way around it, another door into it.
Right.
I can't leave it alone. I mean, to film Jimmy Carter, it took me 3 months to be able to film him.
Just to find the time kind of a thing? Or
No. He's going to be 94, October 1st. He goes in once a month to the Carter Center. A lot of people want to talk to him.
Of course.
This is certainly not his favorite subject to talk about, and has not talked about it in a very long time. And it was just through persistence. And a friend of mine named Bernie Aronson was Mondale's speechwriter, so I had him help me. Jerry Rashun, who's in the film, was the campaign manager for Jimmy Carter, so I had him help me. And then there was this guy that everyone kept telling me, okay, well, you have to talk to Phil Wise. and he runs the Carter Center. So I would call, and he would never call me back. So I had a relationship with his voicemail. You know, he would say, "Hi, howdy, this is Phil Wise, and I just am not here. I'll call you back." And he didn't for months. And so I would say, "Hey, it's Barbara, and the film's going really well, and this is what we want to do." And I would just have a relationship by leaving him voicemails. And finally, the lucky day came, and he said, "Okay, you can come." It's February 14th, which, of course, is Valentine's Day. So I got the best chocolates that I could find for President Carter, and I got the First Lady a heart. I was in South Sudan, and the women were beading, and it was a red heart made out of beads for her as a gift.
Nice.
They told me I had 20 minutes. They gave me 19 minutes and 47 seconds. And if I gave him the chocolates, that would take away from my time.
Oh, that's the best.
And so I had them delivered before by his associate.
Very nice.
Yes.
Yeah, good call.
And the First Lady wrote me a beautiful letter.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Saying, "Thank you so much. I love this, and it was so nice of you to think about me." And President Carter started by saying, "Thanks for the chocolates. I love chocolates."
Oh, that's a note to all documentarians out there, right? There's something you need to make a note of. Get the right gifts and don't give them on camera.
Right.
You've just lost 90 seconds of your interview.
If you're filming the President of the United
So
States.
are you telling me the morsels that you got from President Carter, you got in 20 minutes? That I see in
19 minutes and 47 seconds.
Just to be
Not
precise.
20.
Yeah. That's remarkable. That's a testament. So how do you come up with those questions? Is it all in the moment, or did you have half a dozen there before you walked in?
No, I did, but I knew what I wanted to get, and so I persisted on getting it.
Was there anything you didn't want to answer?
No.
Yeah.
One thing, yes, but I worked on him, and he answered it, and it happened to be one of the most poignant pieces. It was the piece about that he was really heartbroken when his father died, and his father died when he was really young, and he had hoped that he would never have to go through that again. But when he heard about what happened, he felt the same way, and it just tore him apart. So and that was hard, and he had tears in his eyes.
How do you build that kind of relationship? I mean, there's no relationship there. You have this idea of who this man is. You step in, you send a gift or two, so clearly you've broken some ice.
Well, I think you just
it's fascinating.
Let the President Carter know how much this means to you. And letting people know what his feelings are and how he felt and what he was going through during this period, because this was the hardest period he had ever gone through in his life. He had never been, associated with this kind of tragedy. And so...
is there something you can talk to me about building that level of trust so quickly?
I think it's just being real, being earnest and...
Right.
Not backing off.
And
just letting him know that this is being done out of love and really wanting to know how he felt and what he went through.
Would he have known anything about the 3 months of phone calls that you made?
I don't know that. I have. It doesn't matter.
Jimmy,
I would have waited.
Jimmy, you're going to have to give this woman some of your real time. Yeah, she's been very persistent.
No, I'm sure they could care less.
Probably not. So I hope you have some time for a few more questions. I'd love so much to talk about, and it's the kind of film where you're just sort of barely scratching the surface. It seems to me when you're having a conversation about it, but the morsels that you have in this film, or at least that's what I'm going to call them, the case of beer story. With the message, I mean, that's kind of gold to a storyteller. Do you do that research yourself? Do you have people working with you? I mean, how do you come up with stuff like that? That's just beautiful.
We didn't come up with that. Roland Guidry told that story. And to him, it was one of the most important stories ever to tell. that, he had that, and he always feels that they had the guts to try, and for somebody else to recognize that was so important to him. And he also broke down to when 3 of the men were buried in a common grave, and he said the saddest thing you're ever going to see is 3 widows crying over one casket with 3 men buried in the same casket. So they wanted to tell these stories. They've been bottled up for years, and this was very important to them.
Did you see any signs of, PTSD, trauma? Just as you said that, and because that has been a bit of a theme for me, I think this is my, believe it or not, 23rd interview at this festival, and trauma-like implications have come up in a few conversations I've had with documentarians, but also narrative filmmakers as well.
I don't know, because I spent with some of them 3 hours or 4 hours, and it's hard to tell unless you spend a lot of time.
Sure.
So,
but nobody really spoke about it. It didn't really come up.
No,
in a sense.
People, the hostage, who was the one hostage that was able to come because one of their other buddies had died, and the memorial was on September 7th, so they couldn't make it for September 8th. Really talked about that the heroes were the people that tried to get them out, and that they were in there by circumstance. And the other guys, I guess they have each other to lean on, and these are friendships that they've had all their lives. I mean, I think men who served in World War II or Vietnam or the Korean War, all these terrible wars, they build up this kind of solidarity with each other, and some of them just are unable to function when they came back. But this was, a quick kind of thing. Many of them had been in Vietnam with each other, so really knew each other, and some of them never knew each other, never met each other.
I thought it was fascinating that you chose to leave in that line by the leader of the team, or the guy who created Delta Force, I believe. The line
Beckwith.
Beckwith, the line about the North Vietnamese soldiers.
I know,
it's fantastic.
Great.
It's so good.
I loved every minute of it, and I love that we found it, and I love that Bucky Burroughs commented on it.
Yeah. Do you? We'll wrap it up here in a couple minutes, Barbara, or less. And always sad to do that in the middle of a conversation like this, but. Are those decisions, would you say, I mean, obviously that's a discovery along the way, but are there moments while you're filming you go, this will be in the film for sure because I know sort of now how it's happening, or is it all editing room? Is it all kind of post-shooting?
Yeah, you just never know where the film is going to lead you. And
so good.
You really don't want to make those kinds of, proclamations, because you want to see what kind of film you're making. Who are these people? Where are they taking you? What corner are you going around? So, no, never.
I interviewed Alan Zeweg for his film Coppers this year, which is about first responders and mostly about policemen and women who have retired, who've suffered PTSD, trauma-like implications, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some really gritty stuff. And in the interview, I think he was the first interview this year for me at TIFF, and he said, you know what, David, I don't know what my film's about. And what he was saying, and I think it may be connected to your comment about the magic of people, which I so love, because what he was sort of saying is, I need to wait to see how people respond, how people react. Would you agree with that?
I totally would agree with that. I think all the research that you do and all the thinking about it that you do, you just have to throw it all out when you're there, because you're dealing with people who know so much more than you ever could. And you can't possibly try to, get into their mind if you have preconceived ideas of what they should be talking about.
Right.
I never like to have a preconceived idea. I want them to take me on a ride.
You seem really hopeful still to me. Would you call yourself hopeful? Have you become more of a cynic as a documentarian over the years? If you're talking about the magic of people and discovery and so on, this is amazing.
I'm definitely not a cynic. I love what I do. I'm excited by it. I love people. I have all the hope in the world in people and hopefully in myself.
Oh, that's amazing. We've been talking about a new documentary at the Toronto International Film Festival called Desert One. You're going to have to get out and see it soon. Coming to a theater near you, Barbara?
We're negotiating.
You're working on it. You're working on it.
We're working on it.
How? I know you've got another showing today. How have the Q&As been?
Really fun.
Really
good.
Fun, interesting.
Yes. The first one, Tom Powers was nice enough to let us go for 30 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
We had so many people here.
Yeah, that's amazing that you had the freedom to do that. Usually you're getting ushered out into another.
Well, I spoke to him before and I said, these guys are coming from all over the country.
Good for you. Yeah.
You can't just make it 15 minutes. And I said, and every filmmaker who worked on it even for a week is coming. Yeah. So they all need to be heard.
So a real community event by the sound. Oh, that's amazing. 30. Well, good for you for pushing Tom.
Well, it was easy.
Yeah, it was easy.
He understood.
He totally would get
wonderful.
something. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today. The film's Desert One. Barbara Kopple here today at the Toronto International Film Festival. Thanks. Really appreciate your time today, Barbara.
Thank you, and you're a wonderful interviewer and fun to talk to and so conversational.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Barbara.